Titan continued sailing the Azura straight into the roiling surface of the star's skin. Burning fusion bit against the resplendent rind, but didn't pass through and inside. The ship sang serenely, muting the violent view. The windows sparked with glitches as they shielded the intensity bleeding through.
Nophek Gloss by Essa Hansen. If you are interested in flashy action, vibrant descriptions, you have never seen pacing that goes too fast, you've never met an action verb that you didn't like, well then you're in for a treat.
Excuse me, I'm in for a what?
You're in for a T-R-E-A-T.
Yeah, I see how it is.
This thing is packed with Fifth Element action, with Mos Eisley Cantina settings. It is a ride from start to finish. And if that's what you're looking for, you are looking for fast-paced, young adult space opera, then this is your one-stop shop. Seriously, stop the video right now. Don't go any further. Don't listen to what I'm going to criticize about it, because those things might not be an issue for you. They might not have even been things that you really noticed were lacking, unless you heard them ahead of time. I really think that the rest of this review could color someone's reading of this book, because I do have a lot of criticism. So we'll get to that now. So the pace in this book is relentless. It almost never slows down, and that means that there are no slow sections to contrast with the fast sections. If you think that books should have some meditative portions where the emotional weight of the things that are happening are given their due to sink in and really impact the character, then you need to skip this book. If the idea of a angry, young, hot-headed protagonist seeking vengeance is just like not your cup of tea, like you saw the prequels, you know, young Anakin, you were like, you know what, this is not the Darth Vader origin that I wanted, then you don't want to read this book. Even the language becomes too much. The style of the writing is such intensity, but it's not balanced at all. Like, there are no slow sections. There are no sections where things are just stated plainly. It's always like too much all the time.
Hey, ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's that? Hey, come on now. I want to look at the other thing. Wait, what's it? Oh, I can't quite reach it. Oh, yeah, you know what? This might be just too much.
If that's not what you're looking for, skip this book. What did I think of it? Nophek Gloss. I'm not angry at you. I'm just disappointed. It really pained me to read this book because there is a young boy inside of me who absolutely loves it, who is so thrilled, who would have read this book as, I don't know, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, somewhere in that range, and just raved and just decided it was the best thing I had ever seen. This is the sort of writing that I want to do. I want to write a novel like this one. It just would thrill me from my fingertips to my toes, and I would be all about it. But the old man inside of me, and there has always been an old man inside of me, looks at this book and just asks, is this the future? Is this what the kids want? They want this empty spectacle that just is so very fast and has like kind of cardboard cutouts of substance, but no real emotional depth to it? Get off my lawn. One of my major problems with this book is that it wants you to take its emotions very seriously. It's reminding you all the time that this character's been so traumatized and they lost everyone that they loved and their whole world was turned on its head. But it's just kind of like stating that at you. Because it never slows down, because it never lets that weight really sink into the character, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel meaningful. And the pacing is just bonkers. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's not fast in a good way to me. It's too fast. And it's too consistent. Like, there's no variety at all. It's inconceivable to me how writing can be this good. I love the action verbs. I love the vibrant descriptions. That is how I strive to write my books. It's inconceivable to me that you write that well, and then you get published by, like, who is it? it's somebody famous. You get published by Orbit, right? A well-known sci-fi publisher. And nobody was like, hey, you know, maybe slow it down every once in a while. Maybe, like, take some time to emphasize what's important to this character before you rip it away. Let's just say that the things that the character loses don't mean anything to me as the reader. Because we didn't spend any time showing that these things were important to the character. Can you tell I'm a little agitated by this book? This book makes me think of movies that I was so excited to see. And then it turns out to be just this, you can tell it's just designed by committee, Hollywood corporate BS of we are so terrified that if there's not something flashy happening in every single frame of our movie, the audience in the theaters are going to start like texting their friends out of boredom. And so everything is just going to be this constant sensory overload. Everything moves just so damn fast. We gloss over all the trauma. Maybe that's where the title came from. Nophek Gloss over all the emotions. I couldn't even deliver that without a sarcastic voice, and I'm very sorry. This book is packed with interesting word choices in its descriptions, and it just loves action verbs. I love action verbs. I love pre-Norman invasion English and the sounds of Old English. Sekuning for to the Biedwe. It feels fresh and exciting at first, but after a while you're just like, look, just tell me what the scene looks like. I don't constantly need to be reading all these thesaurus words that you looked up.
Here's an excerpt that just describes the characters walking. Their footsteps hammered on metallic silence. The sound strummed every nerve inside Caden.
And I keep coming back to cinema, to movies, and I really think that they are partly to blame for this book. We look at a classic scene, Star Wars: A New Hope, the Mos Eisley Cantina. There's some quick shots of a bunch of different aliens, there's the band, there's people at the bar, there's this murmuring background noise, there's all kinds of interesting things going on. If you tried to put that scene into writing, how would you do it? How much time could you spend dwelling on all the interesting sights and sounds and heck, smells that you would be experiencing? It could potentially go on for a long time. And what would be the benefit of that, right? The only meaningful characters there are the two guys that have the death penalty in multiple systems at the bar, and then Han and Chewie, right? Everything else is background. It's not important to the plot. In a movie, super interesting to see all of these details. And, you know, somebody put all this work into these costumes, and it's just fascinating and you know, hints at this larger world. But in writing, you can't just dwell on describing each and every one of these aliens and then have it not be relevant to anything. And this book falls into that trap, like all over the place. Let's talk about the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, the third prequel movie of Star Wars. The novelization of that book is actually phenomenal. It's very much like Nophek Gloss, I would say, but it's actually better. And it's actually better than Revenge of the Sith. I truly enjoyed that book, and I can't stand the prequel trilogy. That book not only has that same like vibrant language that we've got in Nophek Gloss, but it also does a much better job than both the movie Revenge of the Sith and Nophek Gloss of dramatizing the emotions of the characters. The performances in Revenge of the Sith are stiff and unbelievable, and the character arc of Anakin happens in like a short number of minutes where he goes from kind of distraught to murdering younglings. But the book has more time to be in his head and develop what's coming up. And that's so important and so powerful. It makes the violence meaningful later on. Whereas just like violence without any meaning is just spectacle, and it doesn't mean anything to us. It's actually boring. So here's a quote from a video on the channel Film Courage.
I think they're often talking about the emotion without actually dramatizing the emotion.
So he has this comment about the difference between just presenting emotion and dramatizing emotion, and talks about how Star Trek Discovery falls into this trap. And again, great comparison to Nophek Gloss. I'm not a fan of Star Trek Discovery. I watched the first season and then about a quarter of the next season. It's just all like so much action and energy piled on. It's frantic. Star Trek Discovery is frantic, and it uses that frantic energy to just not have any emotional depth. Like, nothing seems to mean anything. Sure, dramatic stuff happens. Dramatic stuff happens in Nophek Gloss. Like, really traumatic stuff happens. But it doesn't carry any weight. It doesn't impact me, the viewer. So all that frantic energy and motion is wasted. What can writers learn from Nophek Gloss? Get that out of here. Let's talk about dramatizing emotion. What is it? How do you do it? That Film Courage video that I mentioned that talks about how you need to dramatize emotion, it doesn't actually explain what that is or how to do it. I asked on Writing Twitter, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? And, well, I don't know. I don't get a lot of engagement on Twitter, but nobody responded. So I'm going to answer that question as best I can. First of all, what it's not, and the problem with Nophek Gloss and Star Trek Discovery. Telling the reader, emphasizing to the reader that these characters are in pain, and repeating that is not dramatizing emotion. No matter how many times you say it, no matter how many times they're on screen crying or whatever, that's not enough. One, you need to show what's important to this character. You need to show through their interaction with the important thing, or usually the important people. You need to show through their actions that that thing is important before they lose it. Not afterward when they're trying to get it back, but before. Show how they make decisions that are affecting and affected by that person that they're related to and that they are concerned for. Even if they fight with that person, right? Young kids, like the age of the protagonist, they fight with their parents all the time. But like, a lot of that fighting actually shows how much they truly care for their parents. That's great. Do that sort of thing. So that's the first thing. Second thing is pacing. You've got to give it a little time and space. Or as a writer, you've got to devote the words, devote the ink towards that dramatization. And not just once, but over time. Another technique that I think is powerful is comparing the character's interaction with what's important to them with some other character's interaction with that same thing, to contrast the two. Our character cares about this person or thing so very much, but to somebody else, it's just whatever. It's another person, it's another object, it doesn't mean anything to them. Compare and contrast, so powerful. Lastly, fourth, the character should act on their emotions in a way that affects the plot. If that doesn't happen, what's the point? And Nophek Gloss has aspects of all that, and I think mostly just fails in the pacing. But there's also got to be, this is the secret fifth one, there's also got to be a respect from the creator, author, writer of the TV show or the movie or director and whatever. There's got to be a respect there for the reality of these emotions. I think it's particularly hard when you have a very simple vengeance story from an emotionally young, physically young and emotionally young protagonist. So to show these young characters that are just like constantly raging, it comes off as a tantrum often. It came off as a tantrum in Star Wars. It comes off very frequently as a tantrum in Nophek Gloss. It's hard to respect that to begin with. And then also the author has to bring their own weight to that. Do they relate to that emotion? I'm not convinced that this author does. So to wrap up here, the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. And I am not indifferent to Nophek Gloss, in case that wasn't obvious. If you know some person, early teens, maybe even as young as 10, who just loves Star Wars to death, loves to read about action, space battles, flying through space, all that cool stuff, is a little bit precocious because there are some larger words sprinkled throughout, buy this book for them. Honestly, buy this book for them. It is age appropriate. There is some trauma, but like, again, it's not presented with any seriousness, so it's not traumatic. Buy this book for that kid that loves Star Wars, that loves the action, that wants splashy spaceships, look at the cover again, right? It's a cool, like, blue steel sort of ship right there with bright, lens flare lights. It's going to be exciting to that kid. That kid is going to flip their shit and just love this book. If you wake up in the morning and you slept funny and your back hurts, don't pick up this book. You're too old.